What's going on, everybody? Welcome. It's Mike and Wendy. You are in the Marriage Shop, and it's Monday.
It is Monday, and it felt like spring in Evans, Georgia today.
Oh
I'm not
yeah.
sure what's going on. I think we almost got up to 70 degrees,
Oh,
and that's awesome.
oh, yeah. That is why, according to Money Magazine, number one place to live in America. You can check me on that.
I don't know if that's why.
I mean, yeah, sure, because you can get on January 25th, you can get 70 degrees in the
Yes.
middle of the wintertime.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're Mike and Wendy. This is the Marriage Shop, and we missed you guys last week. So hey, Gloria. Hey,
Hey.
Lisa. We're excited about this one too. We missed you guys last week. We had to call an audible. And kind of redirect.
Yeah.
We were helping Sydney move out, and thank you to those of you who sent your well wishes and sent your love and your encouragement to her as she leaves the nest. Like we hope, like, and not coming back.
Right. For those quick visits and everything. And so, and I don't feel guilty about it. We'll talk about guilt maybe tonight, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
So
A
a
little
little
bit.
bit, we might touch on that,
Yeah.
but don't feel guilty about it. Hey, sometimes it's just time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's partly why we brought this up as a topic tonight. Several months ago, we asked, what should we talk about, and you delivered. So someone had asked if we could talk about really ways that you can keep the fire burning or keep your marriage strong after the kids leave. And I've had several people, well, I say we've had several people confide in us that they've had challenges with that, whether it is that they've prioritized their kids for the majority of their marriage, or for whatever reason, and now the kids are gone and they're finding it difficult to stay connected or be connected with each other. So we're going to talk about it tonight.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're definitely going to talk about that, keeping the fire burning after the kids are gone. For you to keep a fire burning, there has to be some embers in that joint. You know what I mean? There's got to be some heat on it already to keep it burning. I'm just saying. I mean, I don't even know. Do we need to even talk about this in the marriage shop? Yeah, probably. So, but that's what marriage shop is, right? It's about, no matter where you are in your relationship, whether things are going great, whether there's a bit of a struggle. I mean, it's just like anything else, right? Everybody needs a little bit of work, no matter where you are in there. So that's why we're here tonight. So
yeah,
some of us need some work in this area.
Yeah. So whether you your nest just became empty, your nest became empty a long time ago, or it is yet to be empty, there's probably something in here tonight for you. Oh
yeah. No, that's good, because you got to prepare. Right. There's a lot of things that you all are doing to prepare to have an empty nest, but most of that stuff is probably focused on the kids.
Yes. Sue and Ellison.
What's up, Sue and Ellison?
Finally, you work too much and too hard, girl.
Where's Maceo?
Yes. So glad you could join us. So
you said yes. No, Maceo is Sue Ann's husband, by the way. You just like, yes. People are like, what? It's James Brown. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, glad you could join us tonight. So if you guys think that there's somebody that might benefit from this conversation, go ahead and tag them and drag them in. We'll be here, and we'll try not to be here too long. So tonight we are talking about what?
Nothing. That's whenever we try not to be in here too long,
it ends up going
really long. One of those nights.
Yes. Oh, he's in the man cave.
Okay. Call him up. He got internet in the man cave.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, tell him we out here. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So we're talking about empty nest, right? And for some people, it is not something that they planned for, and maybe they were surprised when their kids left. For some people, I'll give it 3 different categories. So there is the empty nest, there is the almost empty nest, and then there is what I will call the yo-yo effect. You probably get it, right? They leave, they come back, they leave, they come back. And so handling all those things. And by the way, all of this and all of these have probably been impacted in some way by COVID and a pandemic. It's certainly for us, that was the case. So we were preparing and anticipating having an empty nest as of May of 2020. And we had been talking about it, anticipating it. It was bittersweet. We were kind of grieving the girls being gone. And then COVID hit in late March, April, and that changed all our plans. And our nest, not only was it not empty, but one that left came back. And so that kind of put us in a different position. So where there wasn't a whole lot that we could do. I mean, you really don't want to act like it's empty until it is. There was this whole process of, okay, so now what? And that's what we posted today. Empty nest, almost empty nest. Now what?
Right. A nest that was empty. And now all of a sudden you got too many fridges out there in the garage. What happened? Right. And so it is, it can be a challenge, because and really we're finding some interesting things, certainly I am, in terms of what it's like to think it's going to be empty, then it's not. And then it kind of sort of is, right? Mm-hmm. And so whereas you prepare yourself for certain things, sometimes you're re-experiencing a lot of things, even re-experiencing some of those dynamics that occur in the house, and some of those things that let's face it, sometimes kids, and if your kids are hearing this, y'all just have to explain it away, right? You gotta just explain what I really mean. But sometimes that conflict with the kids can create some conflict internally within the marriage, right? And so all of a sudden you got some issue with your team, but it's making you somehow feel less like interacting or engaging with your spouse, or worst case, it's intensifying an argument that you might be having. Maybe there's disagreement, maybe you're in some kind of a mood, but there's an effect there that can revisit and feel really familiar.
Yeah, and as far as raising kids, I mean, many people have shared with us, and we know, you have said that kids are like, what'd you say? Not assassins. What'd you say?
Well, they are relationship assassins.
Relationship assassins.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I said. I mean, I said, the word says the enemy has come to steal, kill, and destroy. And I've suggested that kids maybe want to steal, kill, and destroy too. That relationship.
But we're not saying that kids are the enemy
That's right.
per se. But in terms of your relationship, kids definitely have an impact. So we can start there. So if you had children, how much of an impact did they have on your marriage? Oh, blocker, she says. Hey, Maceo.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Did he say hello,
yes,
or is he like here?
She said, Maceo said hello. She found him.
I know, but
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Okay, continue. What's up?
So if you had children, how much of an impact on your marriage did those kids have? Before we got married, we had people that were advising us to wait 5 years before we had children so that we would have time to enjoy each other. And that advice was not unique to us. I mean, a lot of people say that. Oh, she said, "Oh, he's here listening." Good.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say that if you have kids too soon, or if you have kids before you get married, that you are somehow cheating, that you and your spouse are being cheated out of really being able to enjoy each other as adults without that additional responsibility. We really can't speak to that either way. I mean, we didn't take the advice. Within a year of being married, we were actually pregnant with our first child, and it went from there. And so there's no looking back. Once it's done, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
But along the way, if you haven't had conversations about either wanting kids or how many kids you want to have, or raising kids and how you're going to raise those kids,
and when you're going to have them,
mm-hmm. then once they're here, you're kind of what's the word? It's not building the plane as it's taking off, is it? Is that the description?
Well, in effect, yeah, you're building the plane while you're flying it through the air.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Hey, Antoinette Brunson, glad you could join us. She says we planned and did everything around the boards.
Well, see, here's the thing, and this is not necessarily what tonight is about, but I'll simply say for people, and no offense if this is the advice that you've given people, or maybe it's what you did yourself. The idea you wait for a time and you can just kind of do your thing, and then you have kids because you're going to be really, you're going to have your hands full. I think that some of us don't know or haven't learned how to have kids and live a life where you're still prioritizing each other and taking care of each other along the way. Because what we do know is that there are some folks who have kids and then boom, there is no couple for 20 years, 18 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you got to ask yourself, like, is it about stopping the process, or is it about integrating, this and creating this family and figuring out how you do it?
Yeah. And, part of the challenge is the advice, right? So when there's good advice or people around that can give you good advice about how to manage that, how to navigate it, it can certainly make it a whole lot easier. When you're isolated or maybe away from family or don't have the support, it can make it more challenging. One of the things that we committed to was really just trying to integrate the kids into whatever we were doing. So however that could happen, whatever little thing I had to buy so that we could go out and eat and have the kids with us from the very beginning, I did. And we did that. And we started out that way and we kept doing it. I mean, we had a little chair that hooked onto a table with little disposable mats, just to make sure that we were protecting our child, but that we were still able to live our life and not in isolation,
Yeah.
even though we were away from family.
Right. And there was a combination of things though. I mean, we did that, we kind of go ahead and integrate them, bring them on out to dinner, or, being in military and moving from place to place, establishing some strong relationships and discovering there are people that you could trust and allowing them to help along the way. Raising kids is not a solo effort. It's just not a two-person effort.
Right.
It takes a village, for real. And we actually had a lot of our village. It was very moving actually on Friday night. We did a virtual housewarming for Sydney, and it was very moving to see all the faces from almost every phase of her life on the screen. And so there's a lot of things that Zoom has done, but it created this opportunity, at least this idea that we're able to see people in the room, quote unquote, that we wouldn't have been able to see together like that in any other way. And so that was to just kind of take it in and like, man, all these people, I mean, literally each and every one of them had a hand in who this young lady has become.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't have done that by ourselves.
That's true. It took us a while to get there. And we know we have friends, we know people who don't trust anybody with their kids and or make decisions that one of them is going to stay home with the kids to raise the kids because they don't trust leaving their children with anyone. And we certainly are not criticizing that. It's a choice. But even with that choice, if you make the decision that you don't want to trust or leave your kids with anyone else, then know that you're sacrificing something. And what we always encourage is that you still make time for each other. So even if you're not able to go out or you don't create a date night, or you don't want to have a babysitter, you can still find ways to have the kids in their rooms or in a playroom or somewhere where they are safe while you and your spouse still enjoy some time alone together. It's a little bit more challenging, but it still is important because, and I mean, I could go on and on, but having the kids in the bed with you, don't start it. Because if you start that way, which I don't recommend, especially with infants, because it's very dangerous, but we're not talking about that tonight, but don't start it because they will never leave. I mean, the best room and place in the house to be is in the bed between the two of you. And that's not where kids were supposed to be.
That's right.
Yes.
And so the word says, train up a child in the way that he should go. And when he is old, they won't depart from it. Right. Well, that kind of starts it up. People think about like what's going to happen when they leave the house. That starts at home. Train up a child to sleep in their own bed. And so, because when he's right, once they start, breaking that habit is going to be very difficult, but you're going to have to break it. So even when it's difficult, trust me, it'll hurt your feelings more than it really hurts theirs. Yeah. But you got to do it. But that's really another story.
It's really hard to get them to sleep in their own bed or in their own room. Now, we didn't have a problem. Our kids never slept in the bed with us. However, we did have them in our room, and the hardest thing in the world was to put Sydney out of our room. And I mean, it was just pitiful. I mean, once we did, because she had her own crib, she had her own toddler bed. I mean, so when she was in the crib, it was fine when she couldn't climb out of the crib. But when she became a toddler and having her in her own room in her bed, it was heartbreaking because she would just like knock on the door or she would cry. And then one morning we got up, we opened the door and she was asleep, curled up outside the door. It was just pitiful. It was heartbreaking. Yeah. However, it was necessary.
Pitiful, heartbreaking. But you know what? I don't remember that she was on that floor a second time. There's something about sleeping on the floor that'll kind of just help you to figure it out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, and we get it. We know, especially if you're nursing, it's so easy if you have to get up in the middle of the night when you're feeding the baby to just go to sleep in that position. It's so easy to do that. But you shouldn't. And that's for a number of reasons. Yeah. Because here's the thing. Your bed was meant for two people. And it was meant to do two things. And so if sleeping or sex is not the thing that's happening in your bed. Now, I mean, you may lay in the bed and watch TV, but it was designed for two things. And it's not a family event.
It's not. And if you're going to have a family moment, cool. But your space not their space.
Yes.
And it's important for them to know that as early as possible.
Yeah, as early as possible. And so if you were somebody who cohabitated or you had your child in the bed with you, we don't want to criticize you. We don't want to make you feel bad, but we highly encourage you to start the process of putting them in their own space now, and you can start today. Like we said, it's painful, it's hard, it's heartbreaking, but you'll be better for it, and so will they.
Right. So look, consider this rehearsal, right? And as Michelle Moore Wilson said, oops, too late. Consider this rehearsal, because there has to be something that is kind of the two of you, right? That's yours. And I want to get to Lisa's comment here in a second, but there has to be something that's yours and yours only, because what happens is children, I mean, hey, we love them. They're ours, right? But they will, if we allow them to, or if we bring them in, they will encroach on every moment of your life.
Yeah.
And over the course of time and years, it's important to be able to snatch these small moments, this space that's yours, kind of a sacred space, even, if you will, that's just yours and yours only, that you don't have to fight for all the time. There's enough fighting to do, right? And so whether it be outside of your house or in it, there has to be kind of a respite, a place and a time that is yours as a couple.
Yeah. And whether that's time when you're in the bed or in your room, we talked about date nights too. Dating each other is essential from before you get married throughout your marriage, right? Making that time to spend some time together. So alone together is what we encourage. It doesn't necessarily have to be outside of the house. If you've heard us talk before about setting up a tent in your bedroom, or getting creative with how you could set up a tent outside. You could take it outside and leave the kids inside. Whatever that is, have discussions about it between you and your husband, you and your wife. Have a conversation about how you can get creative about making sure that you're protecting the time that you have together. So let's talk about Lisa's comment.
Yeah, and make sure your kids know this is yours, this is not. Right? It's okay. Lisa said, we started our marriage with a family, so they've had a profound effect on our marriage. They still do, but we also make ways to capture and value our time alone. It makes us better parents, sets an example for the kids, and helps us focus on each other so that we still like each other after they leave.
Yes.
Yeah, right? And a lot of us, thanks, Lisa, a lot of us don't really give a lot of thought to that. For some people, the thought of the kids leaving is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I get it. Right. And it's just like, oh, no, my baby, your baby, trust me, if there's a point at which your baby is like a grown person, you're like, man, this baby needs to get up out my house, because this grown person is not a baby anymore. That process begins way early, but in these small ways, in terms of, what appropriate boundaries look like, like when it's time, like if you're going to because I think a lot of people will kick it in the bedroom, right? Maybe the kids in there and they're talking about life and just, laid out across, foot of bed or whatever. But when it's time to go, there's no quibbling. No, you got to go. You got to go now.
You got to go.
You don't have to go to your room, but you getting out of mind kind of thing.
Yeah. Right? Well, Lisa also came back around and said she would let the kids fall asleep in their bed, but then Brian would move them immediately. That's her husband. But move them immediately. He wasn't having it. And that's important. I mean, so however that happens, again, it's not so much about the act of not physically having them in the bed, but it's more about preserving the space and the time and the connection between you and your spouse. That is really what we're getting at. And so, so forget about the safety stuff. I could talk about that another time, and about really kind of preparing for when they actually leave. But what really is at the core of it is the connection between you and your spouse. So anything, including children, that serves to become a wedge between the two of you,
it's got to go,
is something that should not have a space reserved for. That's what we're getting at. And that includes your children. That also includes pets. And so I know people sometimes get in their feelings about pets and kids being used in the same context, but it's true. And here's the thing. Anything that divides your attention or your affection potentially is causing a wedge between the two of you. And
Mhm.
so, what we sometimes do is we become more comfortable and more focused on that child or that baby or that dog than we do on our spouse.
Mhm.
And it for a number of reasons in terms of what we get back from them, how it's reciprocated, whether or not you feel appreciated. There's so many things that are at
Mhm.
play, but you have to kind of examine and ask yourself, are you seeking something and exchanging something with your children that should be reserved for the relationship between you and your spouse?
Yep. Because under normal circumstances, whatever that is, whatever your reason is, the clock continues to tick,
Hmm.
right? And so once it's time for the kids to go, what remains, right? For some people, the kids are kind of the glue
Yeah.
that hold them together, that keep them focused on the same things.
Hmm.
What is it for you? And Michelle Moore Wilson says her son does not like it when husband. That's funny, right? That means that. But I must guess that he must be somewhere, in between like elementary school age, early teen.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Probably not quite 12,
yeah. So
between 9 and 12.
that just means that your son need to get choked one good time. He'll be okay. It's a joke. It's jokes, people. It's all
No.
jokes. No, but that's kind of it's a natural thing, right? This
Hmm.
this connection, and so that this actually is kind of that's the point in life where kids begin to understand the boundaries and what's okay and what's not with regard to the relationship,
Hmm.
and that your mother and how that begins to form is very important, like this part of life actually, to
Yeah.
begin to understand what that's about and where the boundaries are. And like dad actually is like, as far as mom goes, dad is the end all be all. Right.
Yes.
And so what begins is kind of a bit of a rivalry begins. Now all of a sudden there's training taking place,
Yeah.
right, about how you do it, right? How
Mhm.
how do I have a healthy relationship with someone of the opposite sex? And so it's like, yeah, but it's natural. That connection, man, it's very strong,
Yeah, it
you
is.
know.
It's very strong, and we've talked about that before, and how important it is to also model what you want your children to follow.
Hmm.
What they see, because they see it all, and they're observing our dynamics. And so, if we start to favor them or their company over our spouse, they see that.
Hmm.
If we take their side, or we're always protecting them, they see that too, and they use that. And so not that those dynamics are happening in your household, but just kind of take it all in, because it's part of the process.
Y'all know they happening in your
There
house.
is this testing process. They test the
Mhm.
boundaries to see how far they can go. And truth be
Mhm.
told, when there are things that when there are deficiencies in our connection or our relationship, then our attentions can be divided. I mean,
Mhm.
that is just fact. So Robin Odell says, "I love dating my husband." We
Robert
we
Odell.
can
Hey.
see that. Thanks for being here, Robin.
Hey.
Saw you guys went to a winery recently, and it looked like you had an amazing time. And I also see that you might be moving away, so you will be missed. But thank you
Oh
for
no.
joining us tonight.
Yeah.
So this whole striking this balance between our attention, our energies, our affections, where our focus is, striking a balance between your spouse and your kids can be a tricky thing to do.
Yeah.
And so how then do you start to make sure, how do you start from the beginning to make sure that your affections are not divided? That's probably what I'm getting at.
Yeah. How do you do that? I think, how do you even know that you really need to focus on that? Here's one thing, right? When when there's nothing to do, what are you trying to do then?
What do you mean?
Well, when you run out of, let's say there's no practice to go to, there's no rehearsal, there's no recital, there's no taekwondo, whatever it is
Hmm.
that you've been spending your time and energy and effort around the kids. None of that's on schedule. What do you try to put into that space?
Mm.
Because a lot of people, life's busy, right? And it's difficult to sit still sometimes.
Yeah.
in your busyness, what are you putting into the gaps? And what are you even prioritizing? What has to happen?
That's good.
Because
so, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to pause for effect. Because if if you don't find each other in those gaps, I don't know, you might need to make some adjustments.
Yeah. Well, we read a book a long time ago, and I'm not sure which one it was. So it could be a number of books, but maybe it's something that you've read as well. That says when you go on a date, to make sure that you can talk about or make rules around what you talk about. But talk about anything, but not the kids. We've tried that a few times. That's really hard.
Challenge.
But it does give you an indication of just um, how much of your life and relationship is tied up in your children. And so is that a bad thing? No, we're not saying that that's a bad thing, but you should have other things to talk about. And if you find that the ratio between talking about the kids and being focused on the kids is in the 90 to 10 range, 90 on the kids, 10 on your spouse, you might just be a little off balance.
Find something else to talk about. The kids are they're gonna find their space. You got to fight to get yours, because what we're talking about is when the nest is empty.
Yes.
So we've had them in the house for like up until this point in the conversation. So now they're going, and in fact, here this this year some of you launched your kids. We launched another, and then she boomeranged on back. And so whether you've launched or whether your kids are boomerang back as well. For some people, they're just sending them off right now.
Yes.
Right. They kind of got a 1 semester grace period. Some of you are sending your kids off to work, maybe the military. And there's something about walking by that empty room. But, at some point that room will be empty, right? What then? That was the title of tonight's talk, wasn't
it? Now what?
Now what? What then? Same, right? Now what?
Yes. So what can you do? So one thing is to establish some of those rules. So thank you, Antoinette. It just kind of co-signing on that. When you go out and you designated some time to just be with each other, make every effort to focus on each other. So limit the conversation, or make a rule that you won't talk about the kids, or you'll only talk about the kids for the first 5 minutes and then nothing after that. So that might be one thing you could do.
I'm sorry. What? Hold on, I gotta slow you down. Man, you are like raw, ice cold.
I'm just saying it's helpful.
But I want to, and it's interesting that I would go here, but whatever. If you sometimes there's going to be that sense of loss, right? And you got to kind of deal with that. There's a bit of mourning that takes place.
Sure.
And so you got to deal with that.
Well, yeah. Well, right? Okay. So I'm talking about when they're still there. So I know we were transitioning to when they're gone, but I'm talking about when they're still there, coming up with that kind of rule that you start to. So we want to take you from when they're still home to on the way out to when they're gone. So when they're still home and you're dating, to start to put some boundaries around how much of your conversation is dominated by your kids. That's what I'm getting at. So you were moving us to when they're gone.
Yeah,
so
I
now,
thought we emptied that nest on out.
Anticipating them leaving. So yes, I see that you dropped in there redecorating, and redecorating is a great way to plan. However, what?
No, go ahead. No, please. However.
No, what were you saying?
No, I'm like, redecorate, right?
Yeah.
But you about to say be ready for the whatever the repercussions.
The repercussions.
Oh my! I mean, maybe that's just our house. I don't know if I've heard of that happening.
I think it has happened somewhere else. So yes, redecorating. So in my mind and in my plans, as soon as Sydney was gone, there was this, we had discussed it actually, but she then said we didn't, but there was this progression that once she left, that Morgan would then move into her room, and then we would move to redecorate the other rooms. And anyway, we had the discussion. However, somehow she says that didn't happen. And when she came back home, during a school break, she was mad, just flat out mad. It was as if we had never had the conversation.
It was like, welcome back. Your room, not your room. You're over
Yes. So
there.
here's the good news. I learned my lesson, and before we took Morgan to Syracuse, I said, "Hey, is it important to you that this room stay the way that you're leaving it?"
She did, and I was like, "Who cares what you think?"
I did, but she
It's,
and because her response was, "Yes, I
yeah,
would like for it to stay this way."
yeah. I mean, yeah, I had mixed feelings about that. I mean, because Sydney did not come home until it was Thanksgiving break, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, 2 hours away. And so
Hmm.
she had many opportunities to come home. Didn't come home till Thanksgiving break. My position is, hey, it's been like what 3 months or whatever, 3 months, whatever it was.
Mm.
I mean,
Hmm.
you got your spot, and we
Hmm.
have ours. We get to do what we want with our spot. Sorry, and
Yes.
if you don't like it, well, you'll be back to your spot in just a week or two. So peace.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my position. So I
Hmm.
honestly, and I get it. I'm not trying to be cold hearted, but seriously, get on my face.
Well, anyway, but we take that into consideration. So our approach to that is a little bit different. That's what happened with us. So redecorating, having a plan to redecorate, I would just say, hey, your children, at least have the conversation. So that'd be another one I drop in there. Have the conversation with them before they leave,
Mhm.
either to inform them of your plan for their room once they're gone, or to solicit whether or not they care if you make any changes. And so is that really kind of relinquishing any power? No, it's not. I think it will reduce the amount of drama you may have, but it also is taking care of their feelings, right? Because there's no rush to completely redecorate. I mean, there's some people who before their kids are even gone, they are putting the house up for sale and they are moving to a smaller apartment so that it truly is
That's
it is not a revolving door. Once you're gone and you can't come back.
yeah.
And so we are certainly now in different times. We have generations of our generation and the generations that follow where they're not always expected to just turn 18 and leave home and never come back. And
Mm,
it's taking a little bit longer for them to establish themselves. And with everything that's happening right now,
mm.
it may take a little longer for them to
You
establish
know what?
themselves. Hence the yo-yo or boomerang.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we are the problem because
Hmm.
that nice bed is waiting for you. Anytime you want, come on back, right? Nah,
Yeah, will
nope.
we make it
Come
comfortable?
back,
Yeah,
and it's like, wait a minute,
yeah.
that's not my parents' car. Where
Hmm.
no, call the cops. Stranger danger.
Yeah.
No, it is really important for us to help prepare them to leave. And I think part of that process
Hmm.
is, when you leave, because there's an adjustment for us. And it's
Yeah.
funny, right? Because Morgan said she cared a lot. I'm like, I don't know, because when we rolled out of New York that time, I mean, she was pretty solid. I mean, where the tear? I'm gonna need some. Oh, you want your room? I'm gonna need a little bit more emotion in this moment.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's really, that's why I say
Hmm.
the adjustments process is kind of an ongoing thing,
Yeah.
and I think you're right talking about it and saying, hey, you know what, we're thinking about changing some things. I mean, that's sure. I mean, yeah, I mean that would probably be effective,
Yeah,
even though I'm just like,
just so that it's clear, so that you're sending the message that you want to send,
mm-hmm,
and so that everybody gets a chance to share their feelings or emotions around it.
mm-hmm,
You'd be surprised at the things that your children will miss about being with you and in
mm-hmm,
your household. So we talked about that, what to do on date night before they ever leave or once they're gone, and then we're talking about redecorating. What do you do with their rooms when they leave? And so one thing that you mentioned was preparing them, right? And so how difficult it is when your kids are learning to drive. That's a difficult thing, and you've described what that process was like when
mm-hmm,
you were teaching Sydney to drive and when she drove off on her own that first time.
yeah,
Those are all different. These are huge milestones in your life. The first time they leave to go away to school or the military or whatever out on their own, it's difficult. And the truth be told, because we're still new to this, it can stay difficult every time that they leave. According to Mike's parents, even now Every time we're on the road, they are concerned about it. They don't rest until we get to where we're going. And those things don't change. So we've changed up our advice a little bit, and we now tell couples that once you have children, they're your children for life. It's not they're yours till they're 12 or they're yours till they're 18 and they leave. They are your kids for life. So even at 65, that's still your baby. So with that said,
Okay.
Talk about these things and talk about how you feel about these things. But we can't emphasize enough how important it is to continue to communicate.
That's an old baby.
It's still your baby. So,
but I get you. No,
you're right. Covering up something with.
I didn't know.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So did you want to? What do you want?
Oh, okay. No, I'm just looking at the comments. So a couple people have dropped in. Prentice Smith, thanks for joining us. And Robin, to your point, whether we're leaving them or they're leaving us, it's still challenging. So we, Sydney now has her first apartment on her own. And so she left us. But when we had to leave her and her apartment, it was equally difficult. It was, Mike described it as being like when we took her to school for the first time. You pray and you hope that everything that you've given them and poured in over all the years manifest, that they're able to make it on their own, that they're able to thrive and be safe and make the right decisions in your absence.
Yep.
That's what all of that first 16 to 18 years is all about. It is about the preparation, but it's the preparation for them to leave or for you to leave them.
And one or the other. And no matter what you've done, hear me on this. All right. No matter what you've done or not done, no matter what you've like rocked it, or if you failed, there's a point at which each and every one of us has to own our own life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your kids, they have to as well. And so, and I have to say, I'm getting a little bit better in terms of, okay, man, there's so many things that I wanted to do that I didn't do. So many things I feel like I didn't do well. And yet my kids have to now take a look at their lives and assess, you know what, this piece, this was good, what I got from my parents. Maybe this, not so much. I want to be able to do it differently. And so I think a lot of us spend that time trying to turn back the clock or trying to fix what we didn't have time to fix, when it's okay to let them go and figure it out. Remember, the word says, train them up in the way that they should go. And when they're old, they won't depart from it. It doesn't mean they won't do it somewhat differently than you did, right? But what it does mean is that they know what the truth is, and they know where to find help, and they know where their help really comes from.
Yeah. And I think that is critical. And once they leave, they're leaving you physically, but you're still tethered. You're always and forever going to be connected to your children. So being physically absent does not mean that you're not connected. But kids are gone. So as we continue the conversation, this is about what remains when they leave. Because if you have not been careful to attend to your marriage and pay attention to your spouse and make time for your spouse for all of the years that your children are at home, then when they leave, what you're left with is a stranger.
Yep, absolutely. And so how do you not wake up next to a stranger the day after your kids leave?
Yeah.
Like what are you planting? And I say planting, right? Because there's kind of a period of time where you put something in the ground, you cover it up, you cultivate it, but you don't necessarily see what it will produce for some time.
Yeah.
Once your kids are gone, then you may actually have a look like, live and in color about what it is you planted over those years.
Yeah. So, and the truth is, whatever you feed grows, right? You've heard that. And whatever you prioritize or whatever is important to you, you prioritize. And so as you plan out your days and plan out your years, because you decided and you chose to be married, your marriage must be a priority. That relationship that you have with your spouse must be a priority, along with many other things. but it requires that you pay attention to it, that you invest in it, that you help it grow. If you are not intentional about doing those things, then just like anything else, it won't be as successful or as healthy, or it won't thrive in the way that you want it to. It's also not something that you can push pause on once you have kids and then hit pause again or hit play once the kids are gone. Because guess what? While your kids are growing and changing, so are the two of you. And it becomes so important, and so we've heard from a lot of people that now you don't have anything to talk about, or you don't have anything in common, or you don't enjoy each other's company because you weren't really cultivating that. You weren't feeding that thing for all of those years. So what do you do now? And how do you change that? Well, I mean, I would say you might need to take it back to the beginning, right? So we talked a lot, and we will forever talk about communication in marriage. But from the very beginning, communication and open communication is so important, critical, and crucial to having a healthy and strong marriage.
Mhm.
And so having open communication, you got to come back to that. If you have not been talking to each other for 18 plus years, and now it's just the two of you, it might be time to have a conversation. It's not time to have a
I mean,
conversation.
it is beyond time to have a conversation about
Yes.
something more than where you're going to take the kids next.
Mhm.
And I understand, I get it, but I need y'all to really hear me on this one, right? Because a lot of people will even say that they live for their kids.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not trying to be judgy, but no, you can't. If you live for your kids, then that means what happens at home, right? I mean, what really happens once they kind of launch? And there are several comments, from Sue Wynn
Mhm.
and who else? Yeah, a couple in terms of kids, really being there and understand when they're your children, when they need you, you're gonna be there.
Yeah.
And so I can't even really honestly, from a personal standpoint, speak on what this is going to look like 10, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road. Can't really say that. What I do know is, as much as I kind of appreciated COVID, like kind of bringing the family back, and I'm like, yeah, I can fix everything that I didn't fix or whatever. But we started, Sydney's always known that the idea is that she go out and figure it out and be independent and all that, and try to kind of really begin her life. And so as much as I wanted her to just kick it around here, we've been trying to introduce these conversations about what are you going to do? What are your plans? Tell us about how you plan the budget, where you're going to live, what's it going to look like?
Yeah.
So she can kind of envision that and know that the tug is not inward, it is outward. We'll always be here, but she has to begin to build and establish this thing on her own. And we have to now build and establish what our new thing is. Right. And so
Yes.
because it is now a new thing. This is not Mike and Wendy back in their mid-20s, right? As cool as that was, right? This is not that.
Right.
And so now we have to continue to figure out, what's next for us. But we've always tried to remain connected in some way. Strained sometimes, no question.
Yeah.
But remaining connected, so that now it's like, okay, where are we going? And it's funny, I schedule a trip, and doggone it, if Morgan's move out day is not the week of my doggone trip, it's like, please, can you just
No. I mean, it takes as much as it takes while you are in that season. And this is a season. What we're talking about is a change of season in your life. Some couples report that the spice in their marriage really didn't begin until they had an empty nest. That maybe they started out with a family, and so now they're able to really enjoy each other, or walk around naked and eat cereal at 2 a.m. Like we did when we thought we had that empty nest. That was amazing. But just do some things and have fun with it, and do it differently. Having fun relearning each other. I mean, dating each other again. And so, again, advice is to always date each other and never stop dating each other. Well, dating each other is, yeah, is the fun of pursuing each other, but it's also that learning and discovery process. And there's a lot of learning and discovery that continues throughout the length and duration of your marriage and your relationship. It is ever evolving. Marriage is dynamic. So, you had them, you're planning for it, you start the conversations with them and between you early. And so, Justice Smith, even when they're toddlers, start the conversation early. I can recall that Mike has been telling the girls that I'm his since they were old enough to understand what I'm his means, that I'm his first. And even though it was light, he was serious, but it was light and it may have been a jest. And sometimes, he might have like pushed their forehead, whatever it is. Having those conversations often in a way that they can understand, and then demonstrating that, right? If you're gonna hug somebody, hug your spouse first and then hug your kids. Kiss your spouse first and then kiss your kids. But start to establish those routines and that pattern so that you are again modeling and you're setting expectations. Because if there's an expectation that the kid is first and the kid is in there and everybody else waits for that kid or children, then you might have some reframing to do.
I mean, yeah, look, I think it's important, because you can have it all, right? In terms of everybody feeling loved and appreciated, you can have it all, but you can have it all without like, hey, hey, little girl, hey, little boy, it's all about you. No, it's not all about you right now. And I love you. Hold on now, mom and daddy I'm trying to kiss you. Back up. Kiss your mama, right? Now you come on in. But being able to, you can love on everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And not have to sacrifice that. Right. And so I think because if you're able to effectively do that, then you're not kind of trying to draw from an empty vessel when the kids are out of the house and you have all these empty rooms.
Yeah.
Hopefully all those empty rooms you find a use for them, right? Together, whatever that means for you, but
it's a world tour.
Yeah. So, but y'all know what I mean. Anyway, but be able to really establish, and that's why like there's certain spaces. I remember growing up, going to my parents' room, especially in their bathroom, and there were certain places that just felt a little bit odd. Like I knew that my time in that space was temporary. And I remember even just sitting on mom's bed, kicking it and whatever, but there was always a time where it was time to go. And I just never like kicked the door down and walked in. Right. So I'm just saying, there has to be, because if you make it a practice of preserving something for yourselves, it won't be foreign.
Yeah.
When it's time for the family transition to change.
Yeah. I like that Sue Ann said they stopped locking their bedroom door. Right? That's all I will say about that. The patterns and the behaviors that you have to be in, and the things that you have to be aware of and look out for, especially when your kids are young. I mean, kind of eagerly anticipating getting back to a time and a space where it is really just open and free and you can enjoy each other.
Yeah.
And so we've also had people say, well, they enjoy the company of their children more than they enjoy the company of their spouse. So again, I kind of bring you back to, and I'll ask you, what is that about and how do you change that? So,
brother, if that's you better get it together, son. I'm just saying, bro, if that's you know who you are.
Yeah.
You got to start working on that.
Well, there are many things that you can get fulfillment from your children, but there are several things that you cannot. And we don't even need to get into that. You know what I'm talking about. There is a reason why you are married to your spouse. And there are things that you share as a married couple that you could never share and enjoy with your children. It is so important that you are working on communicating and planning on how you're going to continue to share those things, what that's going to look like, having these conversations regularly and then revisiting. So what are we saying? Number one, start the dialogue before the kids are gone. Start it as early as you think is appropriate and they can understand, but start the dialogue with your children and with your spouse way before they actually leave. If you didn't do that and they're already gone, start the dialogue now. It is never too late. So number two, finding a balance between me time and we time. So these are some things that we found. Balance between me time and we time. COVID just completely blew that up because while you may have been finding some time to yourself, all of a sudden we were thrust because of a pandemic into sharing time and space that we had not planned to share. We were now seeing our spouse maybe more than we ever desired, and for some people, or ever anticipated. And it's like, man, we noticed all of the things that they do differently from us. And it's like, why do you do it that way? And there was friction and there's tension and there's all this, discovery. And so now you may be saying, okay, so when the kids are gone, I just want my space. I want to be able to have some time for me. While that is important, and yes, you should enjoy that, you also should know that you have to balance that time. Yes, your me time is important, but we time is equally as important. Just because it's just the two of you at home doesn't mean you don't have to date.
Yep. And by the way, y'all, it's COVID-19. It's not a nuclear fallout. Go outside. I'm just saying.
Go for a walk. Okay, so this next one, fix problems that you can fix. So apparently, at least according to the research, 60 to 70% of issues that arise in a marriage are things that cannot be resolved. Who knew? And so working to get to a place where you recognize, hey, this is not something that can be resolved. It's not that we can't do it, because we find ourselves in that situation all the time. Why can't we do this? What is the problem? It's not just that we're failing at it. It's something that cannot be resolved. So don't spend your time focusing on the things that can't be resolved between you. Focus on that other 20 to 30% that you can resolve and resolve it. What do you think about that?
That's good. Because because it's honestly, you're in marriage, it actually is not about resolving the problem at all. It's about putting it down. It's about grace. It's about getting, and I don't want to oversimplify, but it's about getting over it. Like about throwing it away. Ultimately, I mean, that's really what marriage is about. It's not about, we talk about compromise. That's fine. What about sacrifice? What about surrender? That's what marriage really is about, to be honest. I mean, I don't want to lay it on too heavy for y'all. That's the truth.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I'll throw this one in there. Remember how to laugh with each other. The fun in your marriage should never leave. And so we get real serious when we become adults. And then we get more serious when we become parents. Most of us, not all of us. And so then the stresses of life, work, and trying to balance family and all of those things can somehow kind of just suck the life out of everything, the enjoyment out of life. But learning how to always have fun, or being able to laugh at ourselves or at each other, can be really important. And so when you're dating or when your nest is empty, find ways to just be able to enjoy each other and laugh at each other and with each other.
Yeah, and do it away from your kids too. Our kids are way too serious. All of a sudden, it's just like, why are you laughing at that? It's like, mind your business, child. No, I mean, but
they judge everything.
but laughter is it's great medicine, actually. Right? Improves the mood, improves your overall health. It improves your ability to be liked by someone else, and it makes it easier to like someone as well. Yes. Right? So lighten up, people.
Yeah, and like sex, it releases endorphins, right? And increases oxytocin. We just feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. So
when we're able to laugh.
What? Yeah, no. Antoinette was saying is surrender is hard and don't know why. Michelle Moore Wilson said the same here, right? And so it's hard, right? It's hard for everybody. Yeah. However, there's something that happens when you do, because when you're able to put something down that you've been holding, right? Like legitimately put it down. Not, I'm just not going to say anything about it today, but legitimately like forgive and decide that that thing will not be the thing that keeps you separated from your spouse. There's something that happens that not only lightens the room, but it begins to change things in the relationship. It changes the dynamics of the relationship, and how you all come together, how you forgive, how you argue.
Yeah.
It changes things, right? And so it is very difficult because trust me, I know. I'm like I have the trophy out back. It's the Grudge King. It's a big old, it's big. It's like a bust of my head. I'm the king of holding grudges.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. And it is important. Sorry.
Go ahead.
It is important to know that when you are unable to let go of things, it absolutely can impact your health, not just your emotional health, but your physical health. And that is documented. And so whether or not, many of you know our story, and I talked about and have shared about how I smiled all the time. But then at that point in our lives, it was difficult for me to smile. And if I had never smiled again, then there would have been something that I lost that was really, truly a part of me. And so grieving that loss is part of the process, right? But choosing to step away from or lose something that was such a part of me, that would have been a decision. And I chose not to do that, right? And so am I saying it's just as easy as making up your mind and clicking your heels together? No, it takes time, but it is a decision. And when you make that decision, and we're not just talking about forgiveness here, but when you're making that decision to surrender or to let something go or to move on from something, you've heard me say this before, when you're holding someone captive to something that they've done, you're also captive. You've heard other people say that too, that forgiveness is not just for you, it's for the other person, or for the other person, it's also for you. Yet we could get into that and talk about that for probably 3 days. But what we're talking about here is really being able to fully enjoy your spouse, but to also, as Gloria Hamilton said, relief and release yourself. And if you're holding them in bondage, that means that you're holding the keys. If you and so how beautiful is it, and how much more would you enjoy life if you're able to resolve and reconcile, at least that it's something that cannot be fixed.
You know what? Yeah. And because we're talking about like the emptiness, and we talked about kind of having divided distractions, divided affection, etc. I think that as you think about what life will be like when the kids leave the house, it's a great time to think about how you clear the air. There's some of you who have been carrying whatever that thing is. You've been carrying it for a long time and don't want to put it down. And so there's something about releasing that thing. And so this is not about forgetting. That always comes up, right? Well, you're supposed to forgive and forget that. I don't know who even, they put it together because it alliterates, y'all. It's 2 F's. Somebody's like, oh, this is cool. Forgive and forget. No, right? It's about forgiving. How do you know if you've been able to do it effectively? You get off the loop of, I got to remind you, you got to pay. I need to hold out. I need to put this in your face. I need to make sure you don't forget. Right? Once you release somebody from the debt, from that penalty, then you kind of know you're on the road to forgiveness. That place, you won't forget. It's a whole lot lighter, and you will revisit less often.
Yeah. And we've talked about triggers before too.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there aren't going to be things that remind you. Or things that come up, but the further you can move from it, the easier it is on you. And again, is this about holding it together while the kids are still there? And so then once the kids are gone, there's nothing to hold together? That's only a question that you can answer. What we would say is you have an opportunity to begin that healing now. And in order for something to heal, you have to first make a decision that you want to heal from it, that you want it to be different, that you believe that it can be better than it is. And so that's all part of that process. Again, another conversation.
This is
This is why we're always here so long, because we get off on we talk about too much. There's so much to talk about. But I know,
Way to
because I was
go.
talking
Way to
about
go,
laughing
baby.
together. I know, going deep, but that is so important. So all of those things, everything that we've talked about over the last several years, that even we've been engaging with you, all of those things are just little pieces, right? It's all about this relationship that you chose to be in, that you find yourself in, that God ordained. And so now you're here. How do you make it work? With or without children. So the children are gone. You've talked about it. You've found balance. You've done a number of things. I think the last thing I said was to laugh, and remember that your husband or your wife should be your friend.
Yeah.
And hopefully they are. I mean, that's not true for everybody. I mean, you're my friend.
Yeah, you're my friend too.
Yeah, but
Put that
I
Patty
mean,
LaBelle song
hopefully
on.
you can be friends. I don't know, but try to be friends. Being curious and discovering and learning your spouse again. So maybe you got off track. Maybe some things changed. Maybe you haven't been having the deep conversations you used to have. Now you have an opportunity to do that again. Make time to get to know them again and commit to it. It can be fun.
Or maybe you never had deep conversation. Maybe it's always been like, yeah, good, fine. Maybe it's time
right.
to open that door up and dig a little.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So.
And then I think the one of the last things is to create time and space together. I said that earlier, but in this case, being intentional about creating rituals or patterns of behavior. So some people will say, always kiss goodnight, or always hug when you leave each other, or make sure you always say I love you. Whatever that is for you. If you haven't established any, now you have an opportunity to establish some new ones, and make it something that you both agree on. I mean, there's nothing worse than think you have a great idea. You're like, oh, we're gonna leave notes for each other, and then you end up being the only one leaving notes. Then you get mad because you're not getting notes. Okay, so talk about it and establish and create some new ways to stay connected and be connected.
Yes, we gotta go.
We gotta go. It's time.
It is. Is it time?
Oh.
The people got to eat their dinner if they haven't already. So, anyway, listen, we appreciate you all. Thanks for being here. Right. Whatever your relationship is, whatever the one you want, you can have it, but it does require a little work. And I think we all have to own the fact that kids take up a lot of time. Some of your kids have left, and they're still taking up a lot of time. Right. Whatever that looks like, remember that the marriage is the core relationship that makes everything else go. All this other stuff is attached to a strong or the marriage. So if it's a strong marriage, then you will be in a position to pour out when you need to retreat when you need to. Okay. But you got to do that together. All right. So I will give it back to Wendy, but nah, we go pray and get on out of here.
I'm done.
All right. Let's pray, y'all. Heavenly Father, we just coming to you tonight, just thanking you for being God. Thanking you for how you bless us. Thanking you for the time that we spent. We just ask, God, that you help us all to remember the power of marriage and what it does. The importance of marriage is this small foundational relationship that impacts the entire world and everyone in it. We ask that you help us to grow stronger together. Help us to grow closer to you and allow you to fill in our empty spaces and to repair our broken pieces. We ask you that you help us to trust you more, God, with our children, with our lives, with everything that we do. And so we just ask you to bless every relationship here, every couple, bless their homes, bless their families, and I'll be with them in everything that they do, God. We thank you, we love you, and we trust you. We pray these and other blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, y'all. That's it. Listen, have a great night. We will see you next week. Are we on the road next week?
We're on the road next week.
Hey, we might see you from the road. We may do a from the road thing. It just kind of depends. We will let you know, though. We're on the way back to Syracuse. You believe that?
In the snow.
In the snow. So it should be fun. So love y'all. Y'all take care. All right. And have an amazing week.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's your boy JC. I'm in the mood. Yeah. Lately I've been constantly thinking about you, babe. You drive me crazy, yeah. And girl, I want this. Got me all up in my feelings. Over the feeling, yeah. I knew the first time I laid eyes on you that you would be here forever. I'm not being arrogant, and I still can't take my eyes off you. 'Cause you made me better, so much better. I'm in the mood to love you for a lifetime. I'm in the mood to love you for a lifetime, baby. I love your kindness, I love your confidence. Ooh, you're the finest. So glad you're mine, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna be with nobody else. Give me your love, that's all the wealth I need. Baby, you're priceless to me, yeah. To love you for a lifetime. I'm in the to love you for a lifetime, yeah. Whoa. Promise I'ma be around, I'ma always hold you down. Won't you come and hold me now? Won't you come and hold me now? I just got a new coupe, yeah, I know I got a roof, but I always keep it down with you, yeah. And I know they see it, girl, you're my queen, and beauty speaks for itself loud and clear, yeah. Throw it in the air. It's the sweetest sound to follow my ear. And I want the world to know I love you forever. And that's a long time, babe. But I got time for you, baby. I'm in the mood. Ooh, for a lifetime. I'm in the mood to love you, yeah. For a lifetime, baby. Ooh, yeah. For a lifetime, oh, for a lifetime, yeah, yeah.